morning. We're being joined virtually by Patriot Desmond, Patriot Fowobi, the president of the Nigeria Nexus, a member of the Fourth Ram of Estate of the Fourth Ram, and of course, public affairs commentator. Hello and a very good morning to you, Patriot Desmond. It's wonderful to have you join us today. How are you doing today? And good news for Nigeria and Ecowas.
Good morning, Chijuke. Good morning, Nigeria. It's good to be on this space with you this morning.
Well, the first item on the list this morning is a rather wonderful news. Something that many might describe as leading by example by President Tinubu, who also doubles as the chairman of the Ecowas, where Nigeria has paid off its debt of about 85 billion billion naira and 54 million US dollars to 54 million US dollars levy owed to Ecowas. This is just after the 66th joint meeting of heads of state that was held in Abuja yesterday. What do you make of this, Patriot Desmond?
Like you rightly put it there, Shijuke, that leading by example. So the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has only shown other African, West African, ECOWAS leader, West African Economic Community member, the likes of Ghana, the likes of Togo, the likes of Benin Republic, Senegal, and other African countries, that the Nigeria, Africa, the giant of Africa, is ready to lead the war against poverty in the region and insecurity in the region. And for you to actually do that, there are certain commitments or levy that is expected of each member state to make at the end of every year towards the running year 2025. And then in 19 years, this is the first time that Nigeria is paying its levies or its dues in full. It has never happened since 19 years ago. This is the first time. So the Nigerian government, through His Excellency Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has shown capacity, has shown leadership, and has also shown that this is what other African countries in the West Africa sub-region needs to emulate. But now, the question is, this money is meant to prosecute the programs of ECOWAS. Now, the question is, how many Nigerians will eventually benefit from the activities of ECOWAS? Before now, we have been advocating, we've been speaking in strong terms that ECOWAS has not been able to create prosperity for the citizens because the architecture or the structural organization organogram of ECOWAS sees only to the state, ECOWAS of states. The type of ECOWAS we have is ECOWAS of states and not ECOWAS of citizens. And that is why somehow we still experience hurdles, challenges in carrying out economic activities within the South West Africa sub-region. This is the major issue that we have
now,
in this part
of the world.
Desmond,
so sorry to hold you there.
Africa
sorry to hold you there, but when you say the ECOWAS that Nigerians have been experiencing is an ECOWAS of state and not an ECOWAS of the people, do you care to simplify that? What do you mean by the ECOWAS of state?
It is very simple. Now, the presidents of the Federal Republic of Nigeria represent states. Likewise, every other president of the ECOWAS sub-region. It is easy for these presidents to carry out state business among community states. But for individual citizens of ECOWAS states to interact and carry out business as a brother and as a sister is usually very difficult. prosperity and economic wealth we've not been able to create it because of the framework has not really supported citizens of ECOWAS. Today, when you talk about ECOWAS of states, you find out that the governments are able to move around in their private jets. What about the citizens? Is there an easy flow of maybe a train that connects all the states in ECOWAS states? Like, can you board a train from Lagos to Ghana without orders? Can you really move around to Liberia? Can you go to Sierra Leone? Can you go to Cote d'Ivoire? You know, using train, and you won't experience orders.
Or even Cameroon, really or even Cameroon, very close by.
Can you really move products, raw materials, as a citizen of ECOWAS? The kind of right you enjoy as a Nigerian between Enugu, Abia, Imo, Lagos, Kano, Sokoto, can you enjoy it among the other African countries within the West Africa sub-region? That is what I meant by ECOWAS of the state and not ECOWAS of the citizen. So whatever money that the federal government of Nigeria has put into ECOWAS, they should see, being the leader, Nigerian government should take the bull by its own to ensure that they now look beyond ECOWAS of state to start creating framework to develop ECOWAS of citizens, so that citizens across West Africa can now coexist, co-interact. Do you know that there are times that we have this thing of Ghana must go? Do you know what led to Ghana must go? And after about 10 years ago, during the era of President Goodluck Ebele Jonathan, we also have a replay of that scenario, but this time around, it was not Ghana must go, it was Nigeria must go. So these are some of the issues we are talking about when we say ECOWAS of citizens. ECOWAS need to look beyond this gallery they are playing to and bring institutional programs that see to the prosperity of the citizens across ECOWAS. And also, when you talk about ECOWAS of citizens, we should start talking about common currency, common economy. Common economy, common currency. That is when ECOWAS would have translated from ECOWAS of states to ECOWAS of citizens. And that is when it can bring wealth, prosperity, unity across the ECOWAS sub-region.
Now, one of the many things that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu pointed out during the meeting, the 66th, general meeting, was that other member states or heads of states of other member countries within the ECOWAS should emulate Ghana, following Ghana's recent general elections, where former President, John Mahama emerged as president again. And of course, the opposition conceded right on the spot, even before the general election results were announced by the overseen electoral body there in Ghana. How much of an example is such an election to member states within the ECOWAS? And do you think that perhaps with such occurrences happening and President Bola Ahmed Tinubu at the helm of affairs within the ECOWAS, we will see the same replica of things happening across member states within West Africa?
You see, it is a popular saying that whoever wants to go to justice should at least go with a clean hand. You see, Nigeria presently, though, glory to God, we have had 25 to 26 years uninterrupted democracy since 1999 to date. But then, in the recent time, we've been having serious issue with our democratic institution, because the opposition party, they are not actually playing the role they should be playing. One of the things that have worked for Ghana is that the ADC, the party of the incoming president, the elected president John Mahama, who just won the election in Ghana, you will understand the role that the party has been playing a strong and a viable opposition role in the country. Not like other African countries, especially Nigeria. The PDP, who is supposed to be providing the role of opposition, have seen their value system being eroded due to internal political crisis. And that does not actually help the party in preparing itself for leadership. And then democracy is only sweet. Democracy is only beneficial when there is what they call easy, free, and fair opportunity for all players to play favorably. Today, a lot of people have been complaining that Nigeria as a country is gradually moving into a one-party state, which is going to be injurious to our development and the inclusivity that democracy dictates. Like every other country, yes, we need to learn from Ghana. But Ghana is also without its own fair share from electoral violence. But the way the report has been reported by the media houses, for some reasons that I don't know, has actually portrayed Ghana as a leading example.
I believe the major bone of contention here is not whether or not there is election violence in Nigeria or in Ghana's elections or in any of these elections, but rather the transparency and the fairness of the election. I mean, any election could be marred by political. Any election could be marred by violence, but the outcome of the election is what the focus is all about.
There were killings. There were fights, but the opposition parties stood their ground. But you cannot see that on the media. But what I'm trying to say is that we should all understand that whether you like it or not, election will come and go. The only way that you can have a credible election across Ecowas sub-region is where there is what? Economic power and the ability for citizens to vote in elections due to certain laws or conditions that the electoral umpire brings on board. In this part of Nigeria, there are so many things that were actually wrong with our electoral laws, and it is in need of reforms. What I want to say is that for you to have a credible election that citizens would like to participate and will now lead to the easy transition of power, political power from one person to the other, then it has to be credible. It has to be free. It has to give sense of sincerity to the people so that they can participate. And that is why you can have easy transition of government to government without chaos, without anybody want to hijack the process. So it all starts from what? Being transparent. It all starts from giving opportunity to every person involved. And that is what I am trying to say.
Well, Patriot Desmond, it's no news that Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso are trying to exit the ECOWAS, or have exited the ECOWAS, albeit unofficially. But with the recent meeting held in Abuja here, reports say that these three member states are set to officially exit the ECOWAS come 29th January. Now, this is also off the back of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, alongside other heads of state within the ECOWAS, given these three states an ultimatum of 6 months to reconsider their exit from the Economic Community of West African States. Tell us, in a nutshell, what do you expect, or what should, the media and, of course, well-meaning West African member states look out for come January 2025, and what would it look like 6 months down the line when the ultimatum would have elapsed?
Thank you so much, Chijoke, for pointing my mind and pointing our attention this morning to this conversation as we got the exit notice by these three conflicting countries, Niger, Mali. Do you know, this politics is not something you can resolve, even as the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. The President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria cannot solve that problem. It is an international problem. And ECOWAS need to tread with caution to avert unnecessary chaos in the region. You need to understand that these three countries do not have problem with relating with ECOWAS. But the problem they have is, first of all, they want to institutionalize their new system of government that is independent and free from the dependency of French. First of all, do not take the place of the conflict between these three countries and France. Certainly. They have to completely and successfully resolve their conflict with their colonial master, or let me say their big brother, which is France. So the ongoing fight is not just against ECOWAS, but against France. So ECOWAS need to tread with caution. Now, there is a politics that happens. The last visit the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria made was to France.
Yes.
Who knows the conversation that erupted between the President Macron of France and Bola Tinubu of Nigeria as regards these three countries. And why is it that in the last 19 years, this is the first time that the government of Nigeria is bringing these billions of US dollars to prosecute some programs of the ECOWAS? And don't forget that part of the problem of ECOWAS and the program they are bringing about is to see the reintegration of these three countries, conflicting countries. So the only advice that I have to ECOWAS and the leadership of the West Africa sub-region is to tread with caution, because these three countries have been the cry of what they call injustice. Injustice as regard their commonwealth, as regard their natural resources. They have cried. They decry what they call exploitation. They decry what they call marginalization. They decry what they call lack of fair sharing of their own economy and not having total control, which has undermined their development and growth. And these are facts. These are obvious facts. So I would want the ECOWAS to be an intermediary and not to be issuing threats or to be issuing ultimatum. To who concern is the ultimatum? Don't forget that these countries are suffering countries. But the undertone issue is that they have decried injustice, exploitation, and gross mismanagement of their commonwealth to their own disadvantage. Is it not a just fight?
I don't think the ECOWAS is threatening. Rather, it is asking them to reconsider their exit from, the bloc.
The media has interpreted it in different ways.
The media has misinterpreted it as a threat.
Yes, in many ways.
And what will this mean for the stability of the western part of Africa, considering the fact that these three exiting member states have some sort of affiliation with France, which they have now severed? I mean, was it Mali or Niger that asked all French military bases in the country to exit, which they have done, and now Nigeria is seen as having close ties with France after President Bola Tinubu's visit to the French president recently. How much of a conflict might this pose for the West African parts of Africa, of the continent? And do you see any sort of crisis arising, some sort of war brewing in the future?
Not necessarily, Shijoke. I do not see any issue emanating from this breakout of these three West African countries, the Mali, Niger, and Senegal. I do not see any major issue. I do not see any fight. But then, what I think ECOWAS should focus its attention on is about the benefits of the people. If ECOWAS can successfully create framework that sees to the prosperity of citizens of ECOWAS, these other countries would not have any choice but to join ECOWAS. The reason why some countries feels comfortable to break out from ECOWAS is because it does not really have economic implication on them. And that is the point. The major point is that you look at the international business aspect of relationship. What does the relationship with these three countries and other African countries in West Africa sub-region has done to their economy? Look at it from that way. What has Niger, what has these countries, Mali, what has this country, Chad, what have this country benefited? I'm not talking about the states, I'm talking about the citizens. What have the citizens of these countries benefited from the existence of ECOWAS? Chijioke, you are a citizen of ECOWAS. What have you benefited from ECOWAS that can make you cry that Nigeria should maintain their relationship with ECOWAS? You see, we need to look at it from that aspect. We need to look at it from the aspect of economic benefits. We need to look at it from the aspect of security benefits. We need to look at it from the aspect of citizens being the advocate of the union of ECOWAS, not the country, not the states, not the president, not the international bodies. And that is the only thing I want to charge the leadership of ECOWAS to look into. There is no need to force people for alliance. Relationship brings influence. If these countries are getting good influence from their relationship with ECOWAS, under no same condition would this country will be advocating or agitating to break out from ECOWAS.
Many people will argue, much like yourself, Patriot Desmond, that maybe the ECOWAS could have come up with something like the AFCFTA, which is the African Continental Free Trade Area, that is bringing together the 55 countries of the African Union and 8 regional economic communities to create a single market for the continent. Now, AU member states have benefited immensely, including Nigeria, from this AFCFTA agreement. However, ECOWAS hasn't really been seen doing much since its inception, in recent times especially. Can you give us one example of such trade agreements that could arise as, you know, as from ECOWAS to benefit all member states? Before we move on to other conversations.
Let me give you some historical background, Chijioke.
Yes.
You need to understand the reason why ECOWAS was formed in the first place.
Okay.
Beyond the economic that you see in that ECOWAS of West Africa, ECOWAS was actually brought to bear because of the conflicts, that has defaced the region from other regions of Africa. Don't forget the issue of Sierra Leone. Don't forget the conflict of Burkina Faso. Don't forget the conflict of Liberia. Don't forget that there were easy movement of light weapons, small arm and light weapons, and some ammunitions from outside the shores of Africa. And because of the common borders that the countries of West Africa shared, that was why they felt that it would be necessary to have a union, not for economic development. It was actually to secure the region from easy movement of conflicts due to civil wars that have ravaged some of these countries in the West Africa sub-region. So most of the framework that would have supported growth and development was not put in place or was not followed squarely. ECOWAS has not actually touched because of its foundation. ECOWAS was founded as a body. Don't forget, it was immediately, we have what they call ECOMOG. ECOMOG that have been monitoring and to work towards demobilization. You see, conflict was what actually necessitated ECOWAS.
Now
Not
Nigeria was
unity and
actively part of
prosperity.
the ECOMOG, in a bid to bring stability and peace to the West African region, especially in places like
And they
Sierra
succeeded.
Leone
They succeeded
and the
woefully.
rest.
They succeeded. ECOMOG succeeded because what ECOWAS was actually targeting was to douse tension and to help mediate peace in this West African sub-region, and they succeeded. They achieved results because that was their focus as at that time. But since this new millennium, since the inception of this millennium, that conflict across West Africa has reduced. Regional conflict, civil conflict has reduced in West Africa sub-region. Ever since the reduction of that issue, we now have to focus more as a country, as a continent, or as a region in West Africa. We need to start focusing on the prosperity aspect. Now that there are no more conflicts, now that there are no more wars, we need to look at a framework that develops the people and support the citizens. And that is where these conflicting countries of West Africa can begin to think of their reintegration into ECOWAS. Until that is done, more West African countries, West African countries would be thinking of going out of ECOWAS because they are not actually getting the benefits. And that is what I want us to ponder on as a region.
Well, it's quite a very great call and a timely call for us to ponder on what the benefits are for member states, especially Nigeria, because we are in Nigeria and we're Nigerians. What we stand to benefit from this economic community of West African states called ECOWAS. Let's move away from ECOWAS to Nigeria now. Nigeria is having its fair share of battles within the ECOWAS, but having paid off its debts of 85 billion naira and 54 million US dollars levy back home, it says that Nigeria has overshot its 2024 fiscal year borrowing target by 4 trillion naira. Now the year is almost wrapping up, just a couple of weeks before we wrap up 2024. Yet we are seeing a 4 trillion naira borrowing target deficit. What do you make of this, Patriot Desmond? It appears to be a very staggering figure and a worrying one at that.
Yeah. Nigeria is, despite the fact that Nigeria is playing the role of a big brother to the rest of West African sub-region, countries of West Africa sub-region, Nigeria still have its own fair share of economic woe. Nigeria economy has plundered into almost a failed economy as at 2022-23. 2021-2022 sees the country heavily dependent on foreign aids and loan to pay salaries and even to pay the backlog of fuel subsidy. And that was why the president of the country, upon his assumption, had to what? Flag off and completely deregulate the oil sector by removing fuel subsidy on petroleum products. Now, our budgets have depended for so many years on loan. We have had 25, 35, even 45% of the budget running into deficit. An economy cannot go in that way. Our economy is suffering seriously, and what we are trying to do is to manage the crisis. Our economy is not yet on a path or on a foundation that is self-sustaining. So the issue of deficit or no deficit has been a major issue in West Africa and Africa as a whole. But Nigeria, due to high level of corruption, inconsistency of government policy and jeopardy by some members of our influential offices and positions. This has plundered the economy into almost a failed economy. So as a failed economy, as almost a failed economy, we will need to depend on foreign aids, loans. A judiciously well-managed loan can help to reposition our economy for self-sustaining.
What are these judiciously well-managed loans you're talking about, Patriot Desmond?
Misappropriation. Nigeria has suffered misappropriation for a very long time. What does that mean? You go to US, you go to France, you go to Swaziland, you go to China, you go to Germany to collect loan for capital infrastructure. But at the end of the day, we see that these loans are channeled back into recurrent expenditures because of insincerity of government and flagrant disobedience to rule of laws and the rule of leadership. This country, Nigeria, have seen unnecessary money being spent on recurrent expenditure. Why are we paying so much money for building houses for officials of government, houses that we know they will not stay? Why do we keep servicing offices? Every time we are renovating offices, we are spending billions of naira building structures. I've seen Nigeria government spending billions of dollars building structures.
There's something that might interest you, Patriot Desmond, on the front cover of the Guardian newspaper. I will just take a look at it briefly. We will take a look at it briefly together. And when I'm done, I just want you to give me your honest reaction to this very rather worrying statistics. Now, the Guardian newspaper comes up next, and we'll take a look at an overview of the 2023 budget performance. Total earned revenue in 2023 was 12.5 trillion naira. Debt servicing was pegged at 10.55 trillion naira off the 12.5 trillion naira. Which means 1.9 trillion naira. Total capital expenditure 6.4 trillion naira. MDA utilized funds 1.96 trillion naira. Debt service to revenue ratio 68.5%. Unfunded deficit 3.95 trillion naira. Fiscal deficit 10.55 trillion naira. Releases to MDAs 3.65 trillion naira. And of course, debt service to total recurrent expenditure ratio is pegged at 54%. Patriot Desmond, you have heard all of this, and I believe you're also seeing that on your screen. How would you react to the fact that in 2023 we earned 12.5 trillion naira and used 10.5 trillion naira of that money to service debts?
Wow. That is disheartening, Chijoke, if you ask me. An economic that will prosper the people cannot thrive under this condition. We are only deceiving ourselves as a country. If things continue this way, that means, do you know what this means in a layman term, Chijoke?
Well, I would want to.
This simply means that monkey they walk, baboon they chop. Under this condition, the people would continue to be enslaved to where the money is coming from, logically, tactically. That means the people would be working and yet they will be lacking economic power. That is what it means. What this simply means to the people of Nigeria is that, yes, people will be working, but you will not have tangible money to provide your basic amenities or to make life better for you. This is what it means. It doesn't mean that we will not survive. It doesn't mean that the country will not survive. I'm just trying to simplify it. I'm just letting people understand the implication. Because people will see that after all, Nigeria is credit worthy. We can always get money from foreign countries to actually execute projects and to run government. There should be a law, a legislation from the National Assembly to forbid foreign loan for the payment of salaries. That is a way to go. America is one of the most indebted countries of the world. There is nothing wrong in deficit, in running a project with deficit, because the people have to survive before you talk about saving money. For survival, you need capital infrastructure. You need to put in place structures. When you collect the money, what capital infrastructure means is that when you collect foreign aid, it means that the project that you prosecute with the money will be to the benefit of all. That is when an economy can grow or develop. That is how to develop an economy. But when you collect the loan for the building of houses for officials of government, for renovating medical lab and hospitals of few government officials, for servicing the allowance of members of the National Assembly, for making life easy and comfortable by buying luxurious cars for officials of government, that deficit will only be one-sided, which will not affect growth. But money were used on things that seek to the prosperity of all. The economy will incubate, and later the country will be sufficient to pay. You cannot continue to collect foreign aid for recurrent expenditure for the services of people appointed by government or government officials. And this news or report, the statistic has shown that we are sick. We have a sick economy, and the government needs to declare a state of emergency. There is no party, there is not going to be tea party or dinner for this Christmas.
Now, Peter Desmond, this is also coming at a time when the 2024 is already, the year is already rounding up. We're looking at 2025. The National Assembly is yet again expecting another, budget submission by the president ahead of 2025. How much of an impact will this have on our economy? Talking about inflation-wise, Nigeria is already battling with its own fair share of economic woes, and yet we have these very worrying figures for about 4 trillion naira deficit in the 2024 budget, and we are looking at 2025. Please, let us in on how much of an impact this will have on our inflation in the country.
Leadership, Shijoke, leadership is everything. With a focused and a visionary leadership, there is hope for this country. We don't have a problem. Nigeria is credit worthy. Take that from me.
Okay.
Nigeria have what it takes to come out of its hook. Economic challenges.
Now, what is stopping us? What is stopping us from coming out of this hook?
Bad leadership, lack of transparency, accountability, and visionary leadership. When you say visionary leadership, you are talking about a leadership that is concerned about the next generation. Vision is to envision the future and put in action that will see to the actualization of the envisaged vision for the people and for the country. Inflation is eating our country because government of Nigeria is not ready to be sincere with their budgetary allocation. The pattern and the ways in which our budget is being template in this country is a shambles. And I say this to the office of the finance, national finance and budgeting, national planning, that they need to be more sincere and savage and save this country.
Now,
Do you
President
know
Bola
how
Ahmed
budget
Tinubu
is being
has
templated in
always
Nigeria?
hammered.
Do you know how budget? Do you know how budget is being templated in Nigeria? Do you know what they do when they are trying to come up with budgets? They just carry the documents, hold the documents, and look at the entire document. No proper consultation.
It's
Budgeting
usually
should be
a
for
very bulky document, actually.
a very bulky document that the only thing that you see differently in the budget is the priority project by the president of the country or by the government of the country at that time. So they will now include it in the budget that they want to do this under Ministry of Works. They are doing Calabar coastal
highway.
Highway from Lagos Calabar. So they now put it because that's the only new thing you're going to see in the budget. But the 90% of the budget is still goes into corruption, to service corruption in Nigeria. Our budget in Nigeria is overrated, over bloated, overinflated. If there is nothing I know, and that is padding, which is being done by the National Assembly, do you know that any money that is allocated for all the budget, do you know how National Assembly makes so much money?
Well, you could let us in on that, Patriot. But before you do that, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu has always hammered on the fact that, he has surrounded himself with the best of minds economy-wise in the country. Talking about the Apex Bank governor, Yemi Cardoso, talking about the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wale Edun. However, we also saw reports in the news this morning that the Socioeconomic Rights and Accountability Project, Serap, is once again suing President Tinubu over his failure to probe a missing 57 billion naira in the Humanitarian Affairs Ministry and other funds that have been stolen across MDAs in the country. Serap has been at the front burner of ensuring that accountability is something that is on the front cover of their actions within the country. 57 billion naira missing, and yet no probe has been done. How much of an injury is this to us and to the transparency that President Bola Ahmed Tinubu always calls his administration?
It's politics. Shijoke, the call made by the president consistently that he has brought in the best people and he has been focusing on how they can deliver the dividend of government in a transparent and accountable to the people has not seen to the light of the day.
And why do you think that is so?
They are mere political statements. I tell you, if there is one government of Nigeria that has not really been transparent, it is this government. Why do I say so? I'm saying this because before now, agencies, ministries, MDAs, they always have what they call media parley, where journalists, civil society organizations, civil rights activists, we have the opportunity to interface with this agency of government in a bid to unravel what is happening in that ministry or that agency. But ever this government come, there's no that interaction between the media, the people of Nigeria, and the appointed officials of these agencies. The only time you see them on news is when they have a project. It is when they have a press conference. And what is press conference? Press conference is just to give out information, not for scrutiny, because you may not even be given the opportunity to ask questions. Today, federal government have not been sincere enough in the handling of fuel subsidy. Before the coming of Dangote, we were told that the government is owing foreign country about 6.8 billion US dollars from the fuel that have been supplied to this country. How did that happen? Now, there was no clear transparency between Dangote and the NMPCL as the templating of pricing. Also, ever since we heard that the Port Harcourt refineries have been refurbished and operational, we have not seen a clear statement from government on the cost and the price templating that sees to the yearnings of the people. and you call that kind of government a transparent government, please come off it. Come off it. How much have we saved so far in a clear term, not political, from the fuel subsidy removal of May 2023? How much has the government saved? And how much of that money has been put into the future of the country by ensuring that we convert as many as possible CNG for the users? And
now that transparency, many would argue, is what is missing from the administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
Now,
do you also share the same thoughts?
Please, let me also add this. You see, the president have always said that he has brought in the best economic team.
Yes, yes.
The evidence of good economic team is to see to the reduction of inflation and increment of your GDP,
which we have not seen in the country. Which we have not seen in the country since the president assumed office about 18 months ago.
Since the coming of this present administration, the country inflation rate is 40-something%. That is not a product of a good economic team. The GDP has been moving in a very slow pace, though it's not retrogressing, but it has been moving in a very slow locomotive way, analogical way, not digital way. So instead of these lip services, I know the president of the country is a politician and a master strategist that have mastered strategic communication. It's good. It's one of the traits of leadership. I give it to the president. But the truth of the matter is, in reality, some of these things they are saying does not translate into leadership, into governance, and delivering the dividend of government to the people of Nigeria, which is the main contracts, social contracts that this government of APC.
Are you alleging that these are mere political statements?
Most of the statements that we have seen recently, they are mere political statements, and you know it's Chijuke.
Well, Patriot Desmond, in closing now, we have just about a minute or two to wrap up this conversation. With the wonderful work that Serap is doing, ensuring that they hold accountable every single public office holder who is either mismanaging or has the intentions of mismanaging public funds, holding them to account. In the coming days or weeks, what do you think that we should be expecting, especially with this call by Serap for the president to probe these damning allegations of about 57 billion naira fraud in just the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs alone? Now, we have not counted other MDAs who have also had their own fair share of mismanaged funds. What should we be expecting? Is the president going to move in action towards the calls made by Serap?
First of all, I'd like to appreciate the efforts of socio-economic group like Serap that have been doing us proud. But they're also getting it all wrong. A fight against corruption cannot be done individually. It has to be collective. And that is the difference between the Serap and the Nigeria Nexus, the organization that I led. My organization, we have to say this to the Nigerian people, that the fight to make Nigeria great is not dependent on Serap alone. It is a collective responsibility. And they need to be supported. The Nigerian people need to support this organization. And this organization should also present themselves to the public in a way that it shows that they are actually seeking for the collaboration of the citizens. There has to be town hall meeting. There has to be sensitization. There has to be advocacy so that more people will come on board. Because a lot of Nigerians are still skeptical about their role. Who is funding Serap? Who are they working for? Are they working for the interest of the people or the interest of some selected few that is sponsoring them? So you have to make it a common project. You have to make it a national project. And that's what the Nigeria Nexus is bringing on board. The Nigeria Nexus is trying to see that we mobilize mass action across the 6 geopolitical zones and the 36 states of the country, including FCT, to join the force against bad government, bad leadership, in the country. So I want to plead on Serap to try as much as possible to open their hand, to receive more people, sensitize and bring more people on board, and to also be transparent in their own dealings so that they can gain the trust of the Nigerian people to combat the current cancer of corruption that has bedeviled and impoverished many.
All right, Patriot Desmond, quite very pertinent calls you have made there. It's about joining hands together. It's about inclusivity to ensure that we all fight corruption that has bedeviled the nation. And let's be hopeful that Nigeria sees better days and regains its stand as the giant of Africa that it has always been acclaimed to be. Well, this is the much we can take, but I must thank you so much for always finding time to sharing your thoughts with us, to lending your thoughts with us on Morning Express this morning.
Thank you. Best of wishes from the Center of Excellence.
Thank you.